You mentioned already, but I'd like just to hear more. How did Harvey really affect your entire life, would you say? Or at least your early life?
I mean, it really did. You know, when I was a kid, when I was like 13, 14, and finally moved to the Bay Area, I was intensely closeted and quiet and shy kid. And there was a theater professor, a theater teacher in this summer stock theater program I went to, and he told us the story of Harvey Milk, which was the first time I'd ever heard of an out gay man. And it was very confusing to me. I didn't know why anyone would want to be out and gay. It sounded like a really scary, terrible decision to me at the time. And but he ended up telling me the story of this guy who was loved by his community, embraced by his community, elected to public office, and eventually they played a recording that Harvey had done from a speech right here, where he talks about a kid from San Antonio hearing that a gay man had been elected, and that it gave him hope. And you know, I just always really identified with that. And I know I'm not the only gay kid from San Antonio, but I was one of the ones I think Harvey was talking about, and it did give me that hope. It did make me feel like, oh, you know, there might be good news at the end of this road. And so, you know, he is quite an inspiration to me. So, you know, I felt it was important to try and bring him back to life.
Yeah. Obviously, Milk has received a lot of success, your Oscar, Sean Penn's Oscar, and just critical acclaim. What success has meant the most to you, like, of all its recognition?
Of all of this?
Or just the process of doing it, or?
I don't know, I mean, the whole thing has been like a dream. You know, I've been doing film now for, you know, a decade, and TV shows, and other films now, and I've never had an experience quite like it. Like, there was something about being on Castro Street, shooting this film in all the real locations, seeing all the real life people there. I mean, it was very supported by San Francisco, by all the people who were still alive, who knew Harvey.
Yeah, you got to meet a lot of them.
Yeah, I worked with all of them, and we had them all down on the set. Almost all of them, if you watch the movie, are in it as extras somewhere or another. I think Cleve Jones in it like 6 times. You know, and it's like that experience of getting to meet my heroes and getting to really get to know the city that I love so much, San Francisco, and to bring their hero back to life. I mean, it was so rewarding. I mean, the rap night, I was just a mess. I was in tears. So.
Now, one thing that really propelled you to kind of a national stage was your Oscar acceptance speech, where you came out and you told everyone that God loves you even if you're gay. And it really moved me and a lot of people I know. Was that something you had planned if you would win, or was that something just when you went up to get it, you thought, this is what I should say?
Good question. Well, here's what they do. You get nominated in the morning, right? It's like really early. I think 5:30 a.m. Pacific time, right? And so you're up, and then as soon as we got all those nominations, which we absolutely weren't expecting, because the Golden Globes had not been kind to us, the phone starts ringing, and it's by 6:30 a.m. I'm up at the producer's house and we're popping champagne corks. By 8:30 a.m. I have a hangover, and right around 10 a.m. a package comes to your door. And you're like, oh, what is this? And it's your nomination package. It's all really formal and amazing. And you open up this DVD and you put it in, and it's a video of Tom Hanks. And he says, if you win, you're going to be in front of 800 million to 1 billion people. So don't screw it up. So for the next month, you're just thinking the whole time, like, oh my God. You know, I had a hard time getting up in front of like 30 people when I was a kid. I was really shy. So I'm like, 800 million people. So yeah, you know, there's definitely like if you know,
just the whole video. It's just don't mess up, and
that's the subject. No. I mean, it explains it. It shows other people messing up. It really, yeah, you know, it's terrifying. So, and it's meant to terrify you, and you know, it worked out, I guess. So I had certain things in my head that I thought, hey, these are the things I wish I had heard growing up, and it would have meant a lot to me, and I did think a lot about what Harvey would have wanted to say. I mean, this was about him and for him to me. So, you know, I think I said that in the speech, that this is not necessarily what I would say, although I was happy to say it, but I thought it certainly was what Harvey would have said.
Obviously, you've done a lot, obviously, in the film business, but you've also mentioned your work as an activist for gay rights. Do you view yourself as more as an artist or an activist, or kind of like a meld of both?
I mean, I consider myself a filmmaker before all else and a storyteller. But you know, it's funny because that's the thing that moves any movement forward, not just the gay movement.
Right.
But I think if you look at the black movement, they were wonderful at it, storytelling and getting the story out there, and political theater, and as much as I can help this movement because I'm in it, whether I like it or not, you know, I try and help it through storytelling, which is what I do. And so you know, I feel like my career, my creative path sort of lends itself. Harvey said it the best. He said, you know, you have to come out. The only way to change minds, it's not going to be by bullying or pushing or yelling and screaming necessarily. It's going to be about telling your personal story to the people you know, the people closest to you, your neighbors, your friends. And, you know, so I try to do that. And I try to do things like Milk, or even if it's not a gay, you know, show, like in Big Love or in some of the other stuff I do, really just getting people to open up to the idea that there's people who live very, very different lives than you, and perhaps they deserve, you know, the same rights you do.
Now, I thought it was interesting that you said about how the civil rights movement, you know, had like a real clear history, and you said before that like you don't feel the LGBT movement kind of is lacking in that in some way. How can pretty much like everyone, not just artists, really contribute to that history and that understanding of their past? Oh,
to having a recorded history. Yeah, no, I think the you know, the gay and lesbian movement does have recorded history. It's not true. I mean, you go into gay and lesbian bookstores and there's tons of stuff. But I think it's so important that we popularize it, that we get it out to the masses. So I would encourage any artist, go out there and read all those books that these great professors and writers have written that are in all these LGBT libraries. Find something you really connect with and try and retell that story. I mean, you can tell a story many, many, many times. That's what culture does. And find the ones you really connect to passionately and retell it. It could be incredibly helpful. I mean, you know, people are always saying, well, why not this person? Why don't you tell this story or that story? And you just say, yeah, go do it. Absolutely. I mean, boy, there's a lot of stories I'd still like to tell, and I'll try to tell. It's not always easy. Hollywood doesn't always sort of, you know, give you a green light when you say you want to do a story about, you know, gay and lesbian civil rights, but you can get it made.
Well, you've worked kind of to move into a different area. You mentioned Big Love, and obviously you've worked on films. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer like the television series format or movies?
Oh boy, they're really different. I mean, as a writer, television is an amazing place to be, because in television, the writer sort of runs the show. It's the writer who's producing it. So you get a lot of creative control. You get to see characters out for years and years and years and sort of navigate the challenges of that. It's not easy to keep something interesting for many years, but and so that's really fun, and you don't have that stuff so much in film. But in film, you do get this, it's almost like theater. It's like putting on a production. You get this really intense moment where you form this family, you come together, you all have one common goal, and that's, you know, that's quite an experience as well. So I prefer directing in film, because, you know, the writer oftentimes disappears once you go into production in features. But you know, they both have their perks. I'm still doing both, so I'm still working on feature scripts and developing a new show for HBO now.
Now, I believe you worked on Milk for 6 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, off and on, not from head to toe. But
when you work on a project that long, how do you know when it's done? How do you know when you finally said, "This is it. This is as good as it's going to get"? Or is it ever really done? Yeah,
I don't think it's ever. It's like, that's why it's important you have friends and coworkers and collaborators who have to wrestle it out of your hands, because it's never really done. In this case, I've been working on it off and on for like 6 years. So I would take my hiatuses from Big Love and go up to San Francisco around the weekends and do that research. And I eventually found out that Warner Brothers was going to revive their project on Harvey Milk, which they've been trying to do since 1989. So it just was like, you better put it out in the world now, or else it's going to be all for naught. And Cleve Jones, thankfully, had this roommate years and years and years ago named Gus Van Sant, true.
I did not know that.
And he passed him the script. So I guess the moment was when Gus called me up on the phone and said, "Yeah, it's good. Let's make it." So I'm like, done. It's done. Yeah.